Chapter 24 of The Crime at Black Dudley by Margery Allingham. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Read by Terence Callan. Chapter 24 The Last of Black Dudley. I'm sorry to have had to trouble you, sir. Detective Inspector Pillow of the County Police flapped back a closely written page of his notebook and resettled himself on the wooden chair which seemed so small for him as he spoke. Abershaw, who was bending over the bed in which Prenderby lay, now conscious and able to take an interest in the proceedings, did not speak. The three of them were alone in one of the first-floor rooms of Black Dudley, and the inspector was coming to the end of his inquiry. He was a sturdy, red-faced man with close-cropped yellow hair and a slow-smiling blue eye. At the moment he was slightly embarrassed, but he went on with his duty doggedly. "We're getting everybody's statements in their own words," he said, adding importantly, and with one eye on Abershaw, "The chief is not at all sure that Scotland Yard won't be interested in this affair. He is going to acquaint them with the facts right away, I believe. I know there's no harm in me telling you that, sir." He paused and cast a wary glance at the little red-haired doctor. "Oh, quite," said Abershaw hastily, adding immediately, "Have you got everything you want now? I don't want my patient here disturbed more than I can help, you understand, Inspector." "Oh, certainly not, sir, certainly not. I quite understand." The inspector spoke vehemently, but he still fingered his notebook doubtfully. "There's just one point more, sir, I'd like to go into with you, if you don't mind," he said at last. "Just a little discrepancy here. Naturally, we want to get everything coherent if we can, you understand. This is just as a matter of form, of course. Only, you see, I've got to hand my report in, and—" "That's all right, Inspector. What is it?" said Abershaw encouragingly. The inspector removed his pencil from behind his ear, and after biting the end of it reflectively for a moment, said briskly, "Well, it's about this 'ere tale of a murder, sir. Some of the accounts 'ave it that the accused, Benjamin Dawlish, believed to be an alias, made some rather startling accusations of murder when you was all locked up together on the evening of the 27th, that is, yesterday." He paused and looked at Abershaw questioningly. The doctor hesitated. There were certain details of the affair which he had decided to reserve for higher authorities, since he did not want to risk the delay which a full exposure now would inevitably cause. Whitby and the driver of the disguised Rolls had not returned. Doubtless they had been warned in time. Meanwhile the inspector was still waiting. "As I take it, sir," he said at length, "the story was a bit of color, as you might say, put in by the accused to scare the ladies. Perhaps you had some sort of the same idea?" "Something very much like that," agreed Abershaw, glad to have evaded the awkward question so easily. "I signed the cremation certificate for Colonel Coombs' body, you know." "Oh, you did you, sir? Well, that clears that up." Inspector Pillow seemed relieved. Clearly he regarded Abershaw as something of an oracle, since he was so closely associated with Scotland Yard, and incidentally he appeared to consider that the affair was tangled enough already, without the introduction of further complications. "By the way," said Abershaw suddenly, as the thought occurred to him, "there's an old woman from the village in one of the attics, Inspector. Has she been rescued yet?" A steely look came into the inspector's kindly blue eyes. "Mrs. Meade?" he said heavily. "Yes, the party has been attended to. The local constable has her in charge at the moment." He sniffed. "And he's got his hands full," he added feelingly. "She seems to be a well-known character round here. A regular Tartar," he went on more confidentially. Between you and me, sir," he tapped his forehead significantly, "she seems to be a case for the county asylum. It took 3 men half an hour to get her out of the house. Kept raving about L-fire and her son coming of a Wednesday or something. I don't know. However, police officer Maydew has her in hand. Seems he understands her more or less. Her daughter does his washing, and it's well known the old lady's a bit queer. We come across strange things in our work, sir, don't we?" Abershaw was properly flattered by this assumption of colleagueship. "So you expect Scotland Yard in on this, Inspector?" he said. The policeman wagged his head seriously. "I shouldn't be at all surprised, sir," he said. "Although," he added, a trifle regretfully, "if they don't hurry up, I shouldn't wonder if there wasn't much for them to do, except to attend the inquest. Our Dr. Rollins thinks he may pull 'em round, but he can't say yet for certain." Abershaw nodded. "It was Dawlish himself who got the worst of it, wasn't it?" he said. "That is so," agreed the inspector. "The driver, curiously enough, seemed to get off very lightly, I thought. Deep cut across his face, but otherwise nothing much wrong with him. The chief spent interviewing him all the morning. Jesse Gideon, the second prisoner, is still unconscious. He has several nasty fractures, I understand, but Dawlish got all one side of the car on top of him, and the doctor seems to think that if he keeps him alive, his brain may go. There's not much sense in that, I told him. Simply giving everybody trouble, I said. Still, we have to be humane, you know. How about Mr. Prenderby, sir? Shall I take his statement later?" Prenderby spoke weakly from the bed. "I should like to corroborate all Dr. Abershaw has told you," he said. "Do you think you could make that do, Inspector?" "It's not strictly in accordance with the regulations," murmured Pillow, "but I think under the circumstances we might stretch a point. I'll have your name and address, and I won't bother you two gentlemen no more." After Prenderby's name, age, address, and telephone number had been duly noted down in the inspector's notebook, Abershaw spoke. "I suppose we may set off for town when we like, then?" he said. "Just whenever you like, sir." The inspector shut his notebook with a click, and picking up his hat from beneath his chair, moved to the door. "I'll wish you good day, then, gentlemen," he said, and stalked out. Prenderby looked at Abershaw. "You didn't tell him about Coombe?" he said. Abershaw shook his head. "No," he said. "But surely if we're going to make the charge, we ought to do it at once. You're not going to let the old bird get away with it, are you?" Abershaw looked at him curiously. "I've been a damned fool all the way through," he said, "but now I'm on ground I understand, and I'm not going to live up to my record. You didn't hear what Dawlish said to us last night, but if you had, and if you had heard that old woman's story, I think you'd see what I'm thinking. He didn't murder Coombe." Prenderby looked at him blankly. "My head may still be batty," he said, "but I'm hanged if I get you. If the Hun or his staff aren't responsible, who is?" Abershaw looked at him fixedly, and Prenderby was moved to sarcasm. "Ann Edgware, or your priceless barmy crook who showed up so well when things got tight, I suppose," he suggested. Abershaw continued to stare at him, and something in his voice when he spoke startled the boy by its gravity. "I don't know, Michael," he said. "That's the devil of it. I don't know." Prenderby opened his mouth to speak, but he was cut short by a tap on the door. It was Jean and Maggie. "This will have to wait, old boy," he murmured as they came in. "I'll come round and have a talk with you, if I may, when we get back." May Michael be moved? It was Maggie who spoke. "I'm driving Jean up to town," she explained, "and we wondered if we might take Michael, too." Prenderby grinned to Abershaw. "As one physician to another," he said, "perhaps not. But speaking as man to man, I don't think the atmosphere of this house is good for my aura. I think with proper feminine care and light conversation only, The journey might be effected without much danger, don't you?" Abershaw laughed. "I believe in the feminine care," he said. "I'd like to come with you, but I've got the old AC in the garage, so I must reconcile myself to a lonely trip." "Not at all," said Maggie. "You're taking Mr. Campion. Anne and Chris are going up with Martin. Chris's car is hopeless, and Anne says she'll never drive again until her nerves have recovered. The garage man is taking her car into Ipswich and sending it up from there." "Where's Wyatt?" said Prenderby. "Oh, he's staying down here, till the evening at any rate." It was Jean who spoke. "It's his house, you see, and naturally there are several arrangements to make. I told him I thought it was very terrible of us to go off, but he said he'd rather we didn't stay. You see, the place is quite empty, there's not a servant anywhere, and naturally it's a bit awkward for him. You'd better talk to him, Dr. Abershaw." Abershaw nodded. "I will," he said. "He ought to get away from here pretty soon, or he'll be pestered to death by journalists." Maggie slipped her arm through his. "Go and find him then, dear, will you?" she said. "It must be terrible for him. I'll look after these two. Come and see me when you get back." Abershaw glanced across the room, but Jean and Michael were too engrossed in each other to be paying any attention to anything else, so he bent forward impetuously and kissed her, and she clung to him for a moment. "You bet I will," he said, and as he went out of the room he felt himself, in spite of his problems, the happiest man alive. He found Wyatt alone in the great hall. He was standing with his back to the fireplace, in which the cold embers of yesterday's fire still lay. "No, thanks awfully, old boy," he said, in response to Abershaw's suggestion. "I'd rather stay on my own, if you don't mind. There's only the miserable business of caretakers and locking up to be seen to. There are my uncle's private papers to be gone through, too, though Dawlish seems to have destroyed a lot of them. I'd rather be alone. You understand, don't you?" "Why, of course, my dear fellow." Abershaw spoke hastily. "I'll see you in town, no doubt, when you get back." "Why, yes, I hope so. You do see how it is, don't you? I must go through the old boy's personalia." Abershaw looked at him curiously. "Wyatt," he said suddenly, "do you know much about your uncle?" The other glanced at him sharply. "How do you mean?" he demanded. The little doctor's courage seemed suddenly to fail him. "Oh, nothing," he said, and added somewhat idiotically, he felt, "I only wondered." Wyatt let the feeble explanation suffice, and presently Abershaw, realizing that he wished to be alone, made his adieu, and went off to find Campion and to prepare for the oncoming journey. His round cherubic face was graver than its wont, however, and there was a distinctly puzzled expression in his gray eyes. It was not until he and Campion were entering the outskirts of London late that evening that he again discussed the subject which perplexed him chiefly. Mr. Campion had chatted in his own particular fashion all the way up, but now he turned to Abershaw with something more serious in his face. "I say," he said, "what did happen about old Daddy Coombe? No one raised any row, I see. What's the idea? Dawlish said he was murdered. You said he was murdered. Prenderby said he was murdered. Was he?" His expression was curious, but certainly not fearful. Abershaw was certain. "I didn't say anything, of course, to the old inspector person," Campion went on, "because I didn't know anything. But I thought you fellows would have got busy. Why the reticence? You didn't do it by any chance, did you?" "No," said Abershaw shortly, some of his old pompousness returning at the suggestion of such a likelihood. "No offense meant," said Mr. Campion, dropping into the vernacular of the neighborhood through which they were passing. "Nor none taken, I hope. No, what I was suggesting, my dear old bird, was this. Are you sleuthing a bit in your own inimitable way? Is the old cerebral machine ticking over? Who and what and why and wherefore, so to speak? "I don't know, Campion," said Abershaw slowly. "I don't know any more than you do who did it. But Colonel Coombe was murdered, of that I'm perfectly certain, and I don't think Dawlish or his gang had anything to do with it." "My dear Holmes," said Mr. Campion, "you've got me all of a flutter. You're not serious, are you?" "Perfectly," said Abershaw. "After all, who might not have done it, with an opportunity like that, if they wanted to? Hang it all, how do I know that you didn't do it?" Mr. Campion hesitated and then shrugged his shoulders. "I'm afraid you've got a very wrong idea of me," he said. "When I told you that I never did anything in bad taste, I meant it. Sticking an old boy in the middle of a house party parlor game occurs to me to be the height of bad form. Besides, consider, I was only getting 100 guineas. Had my taste been execrable, I wouldn't have risked putting my neck in a noose for 100 guineas, would I?" Abershaw was silent. The other had voiced the argument that had occurred to himself, but it left the mystery no clearer than before. Campion smiled. "Put me down as near Piccadilly as you can, old man, will you?" he said. Abershaw nodded, and they drove on in silence. At last, after some considerable time, he drew up against the curb on the corner of Berkeley Street. "Will this do you?" he said. "Splendidly. Thanks awfully, old bird. I shall run into you sometime, I hope." Campion held out his hand as he spoke, and Abershaw, overcome by an impulse, shook it warmly, and the question that had been on his lips all the drive suddenly escaped him. "I say, Campion," he said, "who the hell are you?" Mr. Campion paused on the running board, and there was a faintly puckish expression behind his enormous glasses. "Ah," he said, "shall I tell you? Listen, do you know who my mother is?" "No," said Abershaw, with great curiosity. Mr. Campion leaned over the side of the car until his mouth was an inch or two from the other man's ear, and murmured a name so illustrious that Abershaw started back and stared at him in astonishment. "Good God," he said, "you don't mean that!" "No," said Mr. Campion cheerfully, and went off striding jauntily down the street until, to Abershaw's amazement, he disappeared through the portals of one of the most famous and exclusive clubs in the world. End of chapter 24.